Hi friends, welcome to the Equipping Podcast from Citylight Church in Omaha. Our goal is to help you grow in wisdom and love for God and neighbor, and we hope this episode encourages you in your walk with God. So today we're getting close.
Too close actually, because we're skipping one and doing the last one. So one could argue that we're closer than we should be.
Our planning was fantastic. We're doing lust this week.
Yeah, so
gluttony was next up. I don't know.
Glittering Vices,
happened, but
Rebecca DeYoung, what's Konyndyk DeYoung.
I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
So we've been doing Glittering Vices. We've been walking our way through these vices, the capital vices. And
a vice is a quality that makes sin easy.
Yeah.
So
like
these
a
are
habit.
like the ways that we see and our desires and all that, right?
And so we've been walking our way through the book, and I think we both realized as we were getting ready to start today that we were planning to do lust, but it's actually the last one in the book, and we skipped over gluttony. So you'll just have to.
So this is for all of you.
If you're reading along,
very disciplined readers.
Yeah. Those of you who were like, "Oh, good, they're going to do the next one." Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
we messed that up.
Our bad.
Yeah.
Anyway, so. Lust. I mean, this is a big one.
Yeah, it is. It's a. I was even thinking about it today while we were, while I was listening to other stuff and sort of thinking through this and preparing for this. But it's it's just a sensitive topic. It's a painful topic for a lot of people, or it's a topic that you don't talk about in church, or There's politics involved, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's fraught with, it could be fraught with
and it probably, of all the seven, is the one that we feel like, oh yeah, this obviously is a problem.
Yeah, well, and she sort of brought that up in the book too, right? Is like the church has, and I've certainly heard this complaint from friends, but the church has sort of focuses so, like everybody in the church admits that, or says, focuses so much on sexual sin. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
Why don't we talk about how we're treating our husband or wife in these other places? Or why don't we try to talk about our greed problem or our wrath problem or whatever? Why is it always about sex? Now, in fairness to us, we've just spent however many weeks talking about everything else. Mm-hmm. So at some point, it's fair to talk about this.
We did not start with this, although we did skip a chapter for this.
Not on purpose.
But I mean, it's just from a cultural perspective, it's a big problem. Especially with, it feels like every new technological innovation involving a computer, you see the stats even ramp up even higher.
Yeah,
right?
like if, and there's this, I don't want to say simple, I don't want to overly simplify anything, but there's a kind of a simple explanation for that too, right? Mm-hmm. Like, sex sells. Yeah. And in America, selling's important. Yeah. Right?
So, I guess we're kind of combining the two most powerful sales forces, anger and sex, in back-to-back weeks, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, she doesn't talk about this in the chapter, but I was reminded of I don't even remember what it was, like some essay that C.S. Lewis wrote. Mm-hmm. But there's a metaphor that he brings up and sort of charges people to imagine that you wander into a land, this fictional land, where every sign has turkey or food on it, gravy dripping off of the signs, and everything is the smell of food, and everything is, and you walk into a club and you would find men hooting and hollering and slavering over food as it's being portrayed and brought out onto the stage. And
one of my favorite images.
And he goes on and on, and it's a very compelling. But his question is, he hasn't described these people yet. Yeah. His question is, he's like, wouldn't you assume then that this must be a starving people? This must be a people who they're so obsessed with food because they're all emaciated and starving to death, and they desperately need food. So how much more then would you be surprised to find out that they're all massively obese and that they all are sick with eating every day? Mm-hmm. And that, obviously the metaphor kind of, I think, explains itself. There's this, we have an element of, I think there are people who would come into our culture from outside, maybe today, but certainly from other times, who would look around and go, what? Mm-hmm. Like, well, I remember when I went to Russia in 1994 as a teenager, and one of the things that struck me was how upfront pornography was on signs and in shopping, on shopping bag. People would be just carrying a shopping bag that had a naked lady on it. And it wasn't, I don't know, like They hadn't gone to an adult bookstore. This was just a store, right?
Yeah.
And it was a shock to me to walk into that place and see that. And now, as I'm much 30 years later looking back on that, now the shock is that we're actually not that different from where they were in 1994 Russia. But yeah, it would be a shocking thing for, I don't know, George Washington to wander around on our streets, right?
The punchline, I think, from the C.S. Lewis thing was something like, it would be fair to assume that they have a troubled relationship with
there's something wrong with
there's something wrong with that relationship,
exactly.
and that's certainly where we are as
and
culture.
So that all of that sort of a roundabout way to get at why is this seem to be such a big deal for us? Well, it is a big deal for us. We're a culture that is really struggling with
and
this.
I think what deepens it too is also this, I mean, I was really struck by this because I wasn't alive when this was happening, but William F. Buckley, the conservative commentator, he has you can go to YouTube and you can find his interview with Hugh Hefner when he was starting Playboy, and Buckley's basically saying, okay, give me your argument. Like, why is this good?
Case.
Right. Yeah. And Hefner, I mean, at this point in time, you wouldn't actually have to make the argument. You'd just say, well, don't you like having sex? Everybody would laugh and it would be like, okay, well, that question's gone. But like in that point in time, he actually made this sort of reasonable argument about how what he was doing was going to be good for society.
Right.
And I think it's worth saying though that that argument is still being made at some level.
For sure. Absolutely.
There is a way of looking at the Christian way of approaching sex and saying this is prudish and this is backward
100%.
and this is actually damaging.
Yeah, and you hear this a lot. And I apologize. I don't know if there's like a warning that should go on this. Like we talked about pornography.
We're going to check that it's not made for kids.
Lust. This is but yeah, I've heard numerous like Tonight Show type, your mayor, not John Mayer, he's a singer. Bill Mayer. Bill Maher. There you go. Yeah. John Mayer. John Mayer's like, leave me out of this.
We'll get there somehow.
Yeah. Well, I think he's brought up in the
I was thinking about John's
book.
Initially.
Yeah, he's brought up in the book. But
okay.
John Mayer's. But anyway, the Bill Maher, and other comedian sort of political hot topic type guys have said things like how healthy it, like men should masturbate or whatever. They make these cases for sort of a sexual freedom and a libertine, as long as you're not hurting anyone, as long as it's whatever. In fact, the men we need, right? He makes that argument that one of the things that's been sold to us is this idea that the ideal man might be this guy in his basement, the guy who doesn't leave his basement, doesn't leave the computer, doesn't leave his parents' house, and lives this isolated, self-pleasing life. That's not true. Right.
Yeah, and we'll get into that, especially when we get to the idea of just what does lust do to myself, to others, and to my relationship with God. But I mean, so there is this tension, right? We have this argument that it's fine, or maybe it's even better than fine. It's breaking through repression. And on the other side, the Christian way of looking at this says, well, no, lust is actually created by God as a gift by God that has a design intent to it. I sometimes I want to emphasize over and over again this idea of this gift arrangement that we have with God. Like, God is our God who gives us good things. And like, I mean, I can imagine like a perverse version of me as a 13-year-old, getting a gaming system from my parents and then just being like, yes, I get to see what happens when I throw it off the roof.
Right. And a skateboard on this thing all day, like riding it around on the concrete.
And that would be wrong because it was designed to give joy in a specific thing with a specific use.
No, that's exactly right. Like, I think sometimes the argument, that sort of cultural argument is, no, not only is it not bad, that thing that you're saying that's bad is actually good. And sometimes we get caught in that argument. The Christians, like, we're not paying attention to. It's not just good or bad. We're missing something entirely. We're not even talking about the thing that God gave us because we're arguing whether this is good or bad.
As another unfolding of that example, for instance, I mean, again, I'm assuming that video game systems can be used in a good way, but like, let's say for argument that I just take it and I'm like, all right, see you later, and I go to my bedroom and I lock the door and I'm there
never
for 2
coming
days.
out. Yeah.
Didn't
Put on a
Christmas
diaper.
at all
Put on a diaper and get a hydration hat and just go straight.
Right. So it's, I mean, again, the point of a gift from God is to be enjoyed, but it also points us to the goodness of the giver, and so we have to use it in the way that God designed, in a way that channels our praise and glory back to.
I think your two examples there with the video game system are actually pretty on brand with a lot of the chapters that we've talked about so far. Is like with envy, there's or with any of these, there's two ways to miss, right? There's pursuing something the wrong way or pursuing something too much. Right. And so you could pursue the good gift that God gave you, the video game system, and that your father gave you, by using it too much, or you could pursue it by using it the wrong way.
No, that's good. So she begins this chapter by basically taking us back to the beginning, and so we want to make sure that we say this. I mean, we believe that male and female were created as sexual beings, as a good gift from God. Right. I mean, it's worth saying that, the old-fashioned use of the word sensual is something that appeals to the senses, right? So the sight, the sounds, the taste, the touch.
A very flavorful orange. Sensual.
But in that sense, the Garden of Eden is sensual, right? It's got these beautiful trees and these beautiful stones and these rivers and it's fruit that is pleasing to taste.
I mean, and I know there's different things thinking about even the way that's translated, but even walking with God in the cool of the day, the breeze of the day, right?
The breeze, the wind.
It's
of
something
the day,
that we're supposed to be able to, I think, quickly imagine and go, oh, that would be nice.
So I mean, Christians have always affirmed that sexuality is a good gift from God, that it's part of the male and female union, of the one flesh union. Song of Solomon celebrates this sexual love between man and woman. And so I guess my biggest point that I'm trying to make is from a theological perspective, the classic Christian tradition has said that all desire is for good. So if you have a desire, basically one question you can ask is like, what's the good thing that it desires? Right. But then within that framework, my desire is for good, but the good can actually become corrupted. It can be the wrong object or the wrong way or the wrong time, and so that's basically sin is a corruption. Sin and evil is nothing. Like it can't create anything, but it has a good object. But
which I liked. That was one of the points I think she made in the book that I liked, that she sort of suggests that lust specifically degrades what sex is supposed to be. It's making it less than it is. It's making it somehow either making it not be either be more physical and only physical, or more needs meeting and only needs meeting, or something. It's typically debasing sex to being just this piece of this thing.
That's good. So we're saying sexuality is good, and sex itself is good. But then the question is also what makes it lust? Lust is a corruption or a disordering.
Right, which it kind of digs on a little bit of that in the book. Is like there's I think there's one of the authors that she's referring to. She challenges him essentially in the book and says, well, is there any difference between lust and sexual desire?
Oh yeah, right. Yeah.
That's one of the questions that she would have for some of these other authors who are essentially saying, yeah, well, it's all good. It's good all the time. Like there's nothing wrong with it. But she would just say, well, yeah, but he seems to be.
What is the difference?
What is the difference then between, is there a legitimate cause to call anything lust, or would you just say?
Because I mean, obviously we can think about ways of being in the world, ways of lusting, which cause incredible damage. And so it just seems to defeat his position if he can't have it.
Yeah. So if there's this big pool of things that could be sexual desire, and some of those things could be lustful, the question is what makes them, is there that theoretically that's the sinful.
So maybe I'll just say as a quick plug, I think along with this we're going to post below it a link to our men's event for a couple years ago. We had a talk on this, and basically from a Christian perspective, what makes sex beautiful is the sort of sexual ecosystem that exists within the biblical covenant of marriage. So men and women both want sex to be satisfying, fulfilling, and safe for everyone involved. And sex has some deep functions that, yes, it's about pleasure and intimacy, but it's also about reproduction. And so the possibility of reproduction is always on the table. And within these bounds, though, there's a covenant of monogamy that is a lifetime covenant, which doesn't just bind you to like a restraint on sex, but it's actually a covenant of faithfulness in relationship. And that sort of that deep commitment to like be the sort of person who will be with the sort of person your partner's becoming. Right. So like if my wife, was paralyzed from the neck down tomorrow, the covenant of faithfulness requires that I become the sort of person who can take care of her. Right. And that's the safest ecosystem for sex.
It's kind of like, and I think, you're mentioning that conference, it was a great conference. And she mentions nitroglycerin. If I remember correctly, I think the conference actually used maybe somewhere else used the metaphor of like fire being safe in some context. Like it's good in a potbelly stove to heat your home, or it's good in a camp. It's bad, in the forest or in Northern California or wherever the forest fires are starting.
Just roaming freely.
And so this good thing that what you're saying there is that this ecosystem provides a place where this good thing is
can
safe.
Be good.
It's good. It can be good and powerful and useful and all this thing.
And make no mistake, it is good and powerful in that ecosystem.
Right. Yeah. In the same way that we wouldn't say fire is bad, but it is dangerous.
So I think this is from the book. Maybe I just made this up, but the definition of lust is something like this: the habitual, excessive desire and behavior oriented towards sexual pleasure. And she has two big qualifications about this. That number one, that sexual desire and behavior is oriented towards personal gratification. So sex is about my gratification. Right. And two, that it's focused on the sort of physical dimension, the mere pleasure of it.
Yeah.
Not that intimacy and not that reproduction.
That was where she was talking. That's what resonated with me when she was talking about how it degrades it to one of these two things. Like it's not, it's not about any of the other stuff that it is. It's really just about either personal pleasure or
Yeah. So I want to come to intimacy in just a second here, but the physical pleasure one, the idea here is that the mere physicality of the pleasure that I'm after dehumanizes. And she has this great quote. She says this from a pastor.
I think she said it was her pastor.
Her pastor. Okay.
I think so. Yeah.
But basically, I want to read this because I think it's an important way of understanding how it's about me and my physical pleasure. So she says, this is the pastor saying, a man leering at an exotic dancer doesn't want to know her real name. A great way to empty out these clubs would be to stand up before a dancer was about to come on and say, "This is Sultry Susan, but her real name is Mary Walensky. She has 4 brothers and sisters. Her parents were divorced when she was 5. Her mother is an alcoholic. She's been." I'm doing this announcing voice. I have no idea.
It's a weird. Yeah.
Anyway, let me
I feel like the announcer, if you're doing this perfectly, it's too late. But if you're doing this perfectly, I feel like the announcer starts out in the announcery voice and then gets sad.
And then gets sad. Yeah. She has been married twice, and her last husband beat her. She has 2 kids and is struggling to get by. She likes dogs and would love to be a dental hygienist someday. Yeah. I mean, that's like that. It's the depersonalization. It doesn't matter. I don't care who she is.
It's similar to what we were talking about last week with my friend with wrath, right? Yeah. Where when he's getting really upset with somebody, he goes to. It's a good practice he takes that he goes to meet them. He wants to talk to them in person, get to know them a little bit, because it helps him see them not as just an object of his, in his case, wrath. Yeah. But in this case, it would be to help to see them not as just an object of your lust, right?
Yeah. So she's making the point in this chapter that lust, defined this way, this excessive desire and behavior towards personal gratification and without, or focused on physical dimension alone, is damaging. And so we'll come back to the intimacy question in a second here, but basically the 3 areas is she says damaging to our relationship with God, it's damaging to ourselves, right, and it's damaging to others.
Right? Specifically our spouse, but also possibly everyone else too. There's many ways.
Maybe start walking us down this. So the first idea of damaging to our relationship with God.
Well, that one's like, that one seems like the most obvious to me.
Yeah.
Right. Or not the most obvious, but the easy one. And that in the sense that almost all of these are an inward focus where you turn in on yourself and you focus on yourself. And when that is your posture, whether it's because of lust or wrath or gluttony or whatever, when that is your posture, you can't see, you don't have your head up, you don't have your eyes out looking for God. You're not listening for God. You're seeking after gratification on your own terms. And so that inward focus, I think that's the thing. The answer to that is fairly in common with all these. I think it also, there's some practical ways though, like we were talking before we started recording this about what is sex for, right? We talked about a few different things, and one of them is to illustrate. I think it's in Ephesians where Paul teases that out.
Ephesians 5.
Ephesians 5. But it's to illustrate the nature,
sort of lived metaphor.
Yeah, not sex Christ specifically, but the married union is to illustrate something to do with Christ and His church, right? Yeah. And so, in that sense, also, it's damaging to your relationship in God, and that you are warping. Yeah, you're warping a thing that is designed to show you some element of who God is. You're warping the lens that you view Him through.
And it's just very obvious to say that people who are caught deeply in the addiction, in sexual addiction, tend to feel like God is very upset with them.
Yeah, it's a very shame. Right. As much or more than any of them, lust has shame and hiding and isolation built into it. Yep. Sure, from other people, you don't want to tell anyone else. You want to keep it a secret, but also from God, right? Yeah, for sure.
I think that we'll come back. We'll circle back to this, but I think that the second one about even the damage to self is, you talked at the beginning about this analogy about. This people who obsess about food. Yeah. I mean, there is a way that participating in patterns of lustful behavior actually makes you much more attentive to it. Right?
Yeah. So it's funny because it does two things that seem almost opposite. One, it makes you much more attentive, or you could say sensitive to see it. Yeah. On the other hand, it also desensitizes you. She talked about this a little bit, but specifically pornography use, but sexual sin in general also desensitizes you to and encourages you to seek greater and more and different and something like that. So you're actually made more sensitive in the sense that you see it more frequently. You see it everywhere, and less sensitive in the sense that you need more or need different or need some. And so those to me are fascinating aspects of our brains that you can make us both less sensitive and more sensitive at the same time.
Yeah, I think she uses some sort of term about the escalation that's necessary, right? That it has to keep building and building. Yeah, right.
I was listening to it was a guy that was interviewing it was three people who are addicted to. That's a new drug on the streets in Philadelphia right now. I forget what it's Trank, I guess is what it's called. It's got fentanyl and horse tranquilizer and some other stuff. Oh, wow. So really, really powerful, 50 times more powerful than heroin. Anyway, he was interviewing these people, and they understood the addiction very, very well. They just weren't able to resist it. And one of them ended up using while he was talking to them, and it changed the whole conversation because they ended up overdosing in front of him, and that became like a rescue attempt at that point. Oh wow! It was a very, very moving and really sad interview. But at one point, they were talking about the dopamine receptors in your brain, and he said something about, well, do you need to get high this morning? Are you going to get high this morning? And she says, I don't need to get high. She says, I don't get high anymore. I just need to get well. Because she's beyond the point of getting anything good and gratifying and satisfactory out of it. And I do think that there's an element of that with lust also, where it's beyond getting anything good and satisfying and gratifying anymore. It can get to the point where the addiction is actually just calling you to
picks you up off the ground.
Pick you up off the ground for a few minutes.
There's
that video, that animation. It's
very old now. It's been about 10 years.
Is that how long
it's the bird that comes in?
We should link that if we think of it. It's
but basically the bird drinks and flies, and then every time it gets lower,
it becomes sort of addicted to the good feeling it gets from like an amber drop or something. But it's a metaphor for addiction,
right?
And it illustrates the diminishing returns and the inability to walk away.
Yeah, but I think one of the more powerful quotes on this for me, and I do think about this just even as one of the things that I feel responsible for as a man in the world is making women feel safe around me, right? And this quote from Dallas Willard says, "When one is inhabited by fantasizing visual lusting, it, like anger and contempt, makes its presence known. It's detectable in one's body language, expressions, including the language one uses to talk about members of the other sex. As a result, it has pervasive effects on everyone in a situation, even if it's not acted out. Indeed, being what it is, a condition of the embodied self, it is always acted out to some degree and simply cannot be kept a private reality." And so even in just my personal habits, this is something that I think about it. It's like, I don't want to step that way,
right?
Because I don't want to, in the way that I present myself in the world, feel like I'm a threat or I'm a danger or I'm after something.
In the same way that I don't want to be sort of, as a husband and father, I don't want to be raging around the house in this sort of, even when I'm not upset, always anxious, always angry. I don't want to be terrorizing my family in that sense. I also, even if I don't recognize it, because when you get to that point where you live that way, you might not even recognize that you're angry anymore. Yeah. In the same way, you don't want to be living out lust into your or something like that into your family, making people feel less safe and less cherished inadvertently, even when you're not.
This gets to that Brent Hansen book that you brought up, because I think that the point about the person
the men we need, right?
Yeah, the men we need. The point about the person living in their basement, kind of doing their own thing, is that there is no boundary between the harm that it causes to me and the harm that it causes to others. Right. And his point is that actually the world needs men to show up with fullness in the world. If somehow
you could do that, you could quit the world in such a way as this character in his illustration is doing. Even if you could do that successfully in a way that truly did not, quote unquote, harm anyone else, you're giving no vibes to anyone else. Yeah. His argument is not only are you not to give these bad vibes, these bad actions to everyone else, but you actually owe the world good.
Absolutely.
You owe goodness.
And this is so obvious also in marriage, because I think that, if there's a moment in this video that people need to hear, like I think there's a ton of marriages where a low grade, moderate grade, high grade lust problem among the husband creates conflict just by virtue of the fact that if I have lust, which is about me and my pleasure, foremost, that's going to create a marriage relationship which has a lot of tension in it.
Right.
So there's a I'm just going to read another quote from the book here. It says, the Christian college students operate under the misconception that well-ordered sexuality works like this. Before marriage, you can't have any intercourse, and you have to squash your sexual urges. In marriage, all the rules fall away, and it's a sexual free-for-all as long as it's with your spouse, of course. And so, this is this idealistic picture coming into marriage that, this is just going to be fantastic because we get to do what we want to do all the time.
Right.
But actually, in every marriage, there's probably an exception here or there. There's always an imbalance in terms of sexual desire.
Sure.
And if you
and even more, if you were to look more over the microcosm, forget every marriage. In every moment in every marriage.
Sure,
right?
Yeah.
Even if they're somehow perfectly balanced, frequency wise, they're it's just not always on the same page.
And it's not always the man more than the woman, although probably more often it is.
There are gender norms.
Yeah, but the danger, and she talks about this because she's talking about she talks about Aquinas, who actually, he overemphasizes I think the procreative purpose of marriage to the point of forgetting intimacy.
Which is a thing, that's a thing in modern Christendom. There are branches of it that are like, it's first and foremost and primarily only about procreation. If it doesn't serve that, then what are you doing?
But the point is, he explicitly warns husbands not to use their wives. Right, like don't if I'm using my wife for my own sexual pleasure, like within the relationship, it's consensual, sure, but there develops this tension. He says it's counter to the good of marriage, even to the point of being a worse offense than adultery, because it breaks faith with husband and wife.
Yeah, I think that's in the book. I think that's where she brings up I said earlier that she brought up John Mayer, but the song is "Your Body Is a Wonderland," right? And it's not, as she points out rightly, the song is not a beautiful song of a husband and wife in a giving relationship. It's like somebody consuming the other person's body. And then she makes the interesting sort of challenge that our bodies are called temples of God. And so then the question is, can your body be both yours or someone else's amusement park and a temple to the Most High God? And the answer obviously is like, that seems hard to imagine how that's even possible, right?
And but it just reinforces. I mean, I was talking to a friend who, on the night of his wedding, the first thing that they did was pray, and I didn't do that on the night of my wedding. But there is a sense in which this is gift. Right. It's meant to channel our praise and joy back to God as the giver of this gift. Right. But maybe to reiterate the point that we were just on, what the important thing to say is that chastity matters even within marriage.
Right.
And by chastity, I just mean a proper ordering of sexual.
I was going to say marriage. That might require.
So I'm not saying chastity is not the same thing as abstaining.
Right.
Chastity is properly ordering your sexual desire, and it matters because always you want within your marriage relationship that sense that I care about you first and foremost. Right. I am not after what I can get out of you.
Well, and that's the thing is, like, I think that's and part of this is just the way we use words and define words or whatever. Yeah. But the helpful thing for me to think about and to understand is that chastity is being set here against and as opposite to lust.
To lust, yeah.
And so
don't get hung up on that word. We just mean sexual.
But I do mean I do want to dwell on it for a second, because that can help somebody who's like, well, what does a chaste marriage look like? It's a marriage that's not filled with lust, but it could be filled with sexual desire. Remember we said earlier, lust is a subset of sexual desire, right? It's a sinful subset. Well, if sexual desire is good, marriage can have a chaste marriage which is full of sexual desire but not lust
and joy and intimacy.
And so lust would be, and it goes back to defining out what that is. Lust is specifically what we're talking about here is sort of a disordered pursuit of this physical thing at the expense of all the rest of what's there.
And so part of what we're saying is that your sexual desire is not a static thing. Like if you give yourself to pornography, your sexual desire will change. It'll probably initially increase and then it may diminish, but it's going to change, right? And the question is, what might your sexual desire look like if you just decided that I'm going to pursue intimacy and the good of my spouse above all else, And the fact of the matter is, there are certain parts of our lives where we won't have everything that we think we want in that moment. Like there's going to be self-restraint. I mean, the food analogy is perfect here. A lot of people go through intermittent fasting. Why? To recalibrate their relationship to food. Right. Right. A lot of people cut out certain food groups. Why? Well, because they're eating too much sugar. They're recalibrating their relationship.
They become dependent on it in a mental or physical way. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just don't think we talk enough about that within the relationship of marriage, because it can be extremely hurtful to relationships when the partners feel like they're being used.
Right. That might be a good segue into sort of the remedies that she suggested, because I was surprised that she didn't. It doesn't feel like she did suggest fasting as a and it's not exactly a remedy, but it feels related to me, right? It feels like one of those things where you'd be like, well,
Yeah.
Like you said, is if this thing is controlling me, what do I need to do? I should cut this out for a while so that I can refocus.
And the Bible actually recommends it too.
Yeah.
It's like by mutual consent for prayer.
For prayer, right.
So I think, and again, I think all the aspects of that are important, right? Like, yes, stepping away from sex for a time. I don't know what that time is. It doesn't say. Yeah. But by mutual consent, not like, one person saying to the other, no, well,
we're fighting anyway, so
sure. like you want to have this agreement that we both want to enter into a healthier relationship about this. We're going to both pray together. I mean, don't hurt each other through this.
Right. And then for prayer, it's dedicated. It's dedicated to
seeking God. And because, as with any idol in our lives, we can try and fill that gap that really comes from knowing God and finding our rest and hope and peace in Him with this thing that is a sort of stand-in. Right. And so sex can easily become that. Yeah. What else does she say about remedies?
The one that was challenging to me, and it's like I said, I think you hit it. So you were talking about the what was her name? Lucy, the stripper. I forget what her lascivious Lucy or something. Licentious. I don't know. Anyway, Lucy. I don't know. I forget what the stripper name was.
Sultry Susan. But her real name was Mary Walensky. So let's call her Mary.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, but you also you brought up another. So one of the things that she brought up as a remedy was friends, was good, true, sincere friends who can go through life in a way that is really, truly, deeply, fully known. Yeah, like relationally. Yeah. And that one actually struck me as like, when I heard it first, I was like, nah, it doesn't make sense. Like that's a counter to lust. It doesn't make sense. But you mentioned a practice or a thought exercise that you've gone through. You should tell people about, because I think it, like the Mary's, like the example of Mary here, getting to know her is the key. Knowing somebody well enough to value them for who they are and not for what they can give you.
So my first reading of this book, because I think the first edition is maybe 10 to 15 years old. So this occurred to me during my first reading the book. But I would often work in coffee shops, and in coffee shops, you're working, and I like to have the buzz of noise and people moving around. But I think every man has had this experience when you see an extremely attractive woman walk in, and maybe she sits over there.
It becomes like a presence in the room for you.
Yeah, it's a presence.
You know that she's there.
Yeah.
In fact, probably all the guys in the room know that she's there.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Biology.
But there's like almost this invisible string where if you're going to look up, you might look that direction, right? And so what I would do when I have these moments where I'm just like, I don't want to have this in my orbit right now, and it's not good for her, it's not good for me. Anyway, I would basically say, like, I wonder who her family is. I wonder what her hopes and dreams are in life. I wonder what she struggles with. I mean, just or what pains or what disappointments she'd had. So I just would ask myself, okay, that's it. But then I would also say, and I wonder like what she and her family would feel, about having like a 40-year-old man showing interest in her,
probably not great.
Not that was a possibility. But it's just the, I want to play the point of it is, she is a person.
Yeah.
She has a story. She has aspirations.
Yeah. There's two things you're doing there, right? One is understanding and seeing her for more than just the object in front of you. Yeah. But also the other piece of it is there's a real value in sort of playing out your potential sin a little bit objectively and going, where would this lead? Yeah. Even if it doesn't lead anywhere, even if it just leads to me lusting after her, that's not to anyone's favor. So there's a little bit of a, it's like, if we've talked about other sins like wrath and things like that. If you play it out a little bit and go, what am I going to do? Am I going to punch that guy? Yeah. Like, no, I'm not going to punch that guy. Right. You play it out a little bit and go a little further and go, well, I shouldn't probably be shaking my fist at him in the car either. Well, it's the same thing. It's sort of playing out the sin a little bit and saying, where would this lead? Like David and Bathsheba. She brings up David and Bathsheba. David could have could have benefited from getting a little bit extreme on where this could lead, because it actually went a lot more extreme than I think anyone could have imagined.
Yeah. I mean, I've read elsewhere, I don't remember where now, but like even just imagining like having the conversation with your wife. Well, I met her at this coffee shop. It's like, well, this is just it's horrible. At 2 steps down this path, everything is just
half a step. There's a very funny I don't know what it is, meme or something, where this guy goes, "I saw a girl that looks like you the other day," and she goes, "Oh really? Was she pretty?" And he goes, as he's trying to figure out where this goes, like he realizes he didn't even say she was pretty. He didn't say anything. He just said, "I saw a girl that looked like you," and he realized
it's the Star Wars. It's the Star Wars. It's a trap.
Yeah, I should not. I did not think this through. Can I retract my statement?
Anyway, so what she's talking about is these are tactical. Throw them away. It doesn't matter. The point is, how do we cultivate a heart that loves other people with our sexuality, positively forming our hearts to love wholeheartedly what's beautiful, true, and good? How do we function within God's design in a way that is harmonious with ourselves and with others? Like, how do we create communities of safety? Does that mean? So there's I think she's asking a beautiful question. I think the one of them that I highlighted that she ended with was, how can my whole life, my thoughts, my choices, my emotional responses, my conversation, my behavior, make me a person who's best prepared to give and receive love in relationship with others? Yeah. And so maybe just that's a question we can leave you with, is just challenging you, especially if you're already in a dating or engaged or marriage relationship. How can you bring your whole self to the relationship and enter into that sort of union with your wife or your significant other in a whole self relationship, like
in a way that treats it as the gift from God that it is.
Yeah. And in a way that doesn't just get trapped in the moment of desire, but leans into. I think she says somewhere in here, or maybe this was my marginal comment, it's really easy to admire someone else's body. It's very difficult to admire someone's soul. Yeah. And that's the aim of marriage. Well, and that's to beautify each other and to glory in the beautification.
And she actually hit on that at one point in the book when she was saying something like, the goal of good sex for a married couple is not simply to please each other either, right? There's still this intimacy and this potential for procreation and this imaging the relationship of God is actually present in the act for a married couple too. So it's not like you said.
And if you think raising kids is hard in a marriage, it's so much harder if you don't have a beautiful relationship with your spouse, right?
So yeah, exactly.
All right. Well. Anything else to add?
No, we did it. We did lust. Now we can go back to the easy one of gluttony.
All right. Well, until next time, thanks for tuning in.